You know, I have never forgotten what you said at Ariam's funeral. That one of the reasons we joined Starfleet is to reach for the best in ourselves and each other. And I have never seen anyone reach for the best in others quite like you, Michael. Don't ever stop. I really hope our paths cross again. Me too.
Welcome, everybody, to Deep Space Pride, a gay Star Trek podcast. My name is Mike. I'm one of your hosts, and with me is Johnson, our co-host. How are you today, Johnson?
I am doing okay, I think. All things considered, I am okay. What about you, Mike? Oh, and we should explain why to our listeners why our audio quality is a little bit poorer than usual.
Oh, yeah. So this week we are recording on our phones via Zoom. Mainly because our internet service provider in Manhattan is having some issues today. So
yeah, struggling.
Yeah, our upload speeds were not conducive to doing this any other way except through. I have Verizon. I don't know who you have. Do you have Verizon? Is Verizon sponsoring this podcast this week?
Is it Verizon? No, I have Spectrum. I thought you said you had Spectrum.
Oh no, yeah, internet at home. I have Spectrum, but right now we're on our phones. Who's your phone provider?
I have T-Mobile, the best 5G network in the United States, according to the commercials.
Okay, according to the commercials. Okay,
I don't know.
Well, anyway, so we're on our phones this week, recording, and we know it's been a little bit of time since our last episode. And, we've had a lot going on in our lives the last month or so, and it's really impacted our ability to do this on a regular weekly basis. So we apologize to those of you who've been kind of hanging out, wondering what's been happening.
I'm sure everyone is like, where is the latest episode of Deep Space Pride? Where is it? Yeah. Where is it?
Well, we are still here. We're just super crazy with life, and we'll talk a little bit about that in Dishing with DEANNA after we spill the truck on one of the Discovery episodes. And let me just break down for everyone what we're going to do. So we're going to try to make a little bit shorter, more digestible episodes to kind of catch up with where Discovery is right now. So today we're going to talk about episode 5. Die Trying. And obviously, if you are up to date, we're recording on Sunday, November 29th, which is the end of our American Thanksgiving holiday. So yeah, we're a bit behind on episodes. We've probably texted a little bit about the episodes. In fact, I watched one of them and was giving you live updates on Slack about one of them.
I remember
as I watched it. But we're going to go back and catch up. So we're going to do these in slightly digestible time frames, and do this week. This episode is going to be focused on episode 5, Die Trying. We're going to do an episode later this week on episode 6, which is Scavengers. And with that, we'll also talk a little bit about what we've been trekking lately. And then we'll catch up to Unification 3, episode 7, and we'll talk a little bit about some other stuff that we've been digesting and off topic with that episode. So we'll make them a little bit smaller. I don't know if they're going to be shorter because we have a lot to talk about, but
there is a lot.
It'll make editing maybe a little bit easier for me. So So yeah, so that's what's happening, and so why don't we get right into spilling the trek on episode 5, Die Trying.
USS Voyager. Oh, Jay, that's 10 generations of evolution?
11. Love to hear those stories.
Let me bring up the CBS All Access summary, which is after reuniting with what remains of Starfleet and the Federation, the USS Discovery and its crew must prove that a 930-year-old crew and starship are exactly what the new future needs. So pretty succinct there. I mean, I went through it thinking as I was rewatching this today, I was like, I'll probably pick out 2 or 3 things that I want to talk about in this episode, and then I have a whole page, the back of an envelope filled with notes.
Oh wow, that's a lot of notes.
I know, it is a litany of notes. So let's jump right in. What did you think about the Federation as we are introduced to it?
Yeah, so I really enjoyed the first part of the episode where we are basically introduced to the new Federation / Starfleet headquarters. I guess they're very conflated now, but sure. I really like the intro there. I like that, I loved all the little Easter eggs. Obviously, the Voyager J, I was like screaming. And the Nog was obvious. I didn't see that on screen. It wasn't until later that someone pointed that out and screenshotted it. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. The things like that, I really loved some of the small details that they put into the episode. Starfleet Headquarters itself, Starfleet Federation Headquarters, whatever, itself looked really cool. It was very unusual, the conical shape of it. I thought that was interesting. It's certainly a departure from any previous Starfleet or Federation architecture we've seen in the past. But I thought that it was cool. It was, I thought that was interesting. And I also really liked our introduction to Admiral Vance. And they kind of did a good job, I think, of making us understand his position, where he was like, I don't know you people, you're randos, and I can't just give you all the Federation secrets. He basically had to be very careful with introducing this new crew to the Federation family, because who knows what they're like. And since the Federation / Starfleet is in such a precarious state, there's a lot of risk. So it made sense. I did not like the second half of the episode that much, the whole fetch quest with the seeds and the Nhan thing. I don't really care about Commander Nhan. Is she Commander? Yeah,
I think she's Commander, yeah.
I don't really care about Commander Nhan, and it just didn't strike the emotional chord that the episode wanted me to feel. She was like getting all teary with Michael. I was like, you two barely know each other. We've barely seen you interact that much. And it's like, we expect, now we're expected to feel all these emotions now that you're going to stick on the seed ship or whatever. And I was like, I don't care. So it was like, the second half then, kind of fell flat for me a little bit. The whole the fetch quest thing, I'm like, all right. I mean, the whole season's there's a lot of fetch questing. But the whole emotional aspect of things, and I know I've been like bitching to you about this, like basically every episode of season 3, I have realized there is crying. There is legitimate crying. There are tears. I'm like, why are there so many tears? I just don't understand. Not everything needs to be so emotional. I don't get it. Like all the other series, there are definitely emotional moments. There are never tears. They're like very rarely tears. There are tears, sure. But there are all these like really traumatic, heartfelt moments, especially in Deep Space Nine, where it's like, oh my God. Like, there's a lot of these like, moments that's like not, it's like very traumatic, very like revelatory in terms of like deep secrets, right? Barely in tears. Here, it's like people are crying left and right. I'm like, oh my goodness, people, get it together. Put it in a box, lock it with the key, throw away the key, smash the box, and put your feelings elsewhere. I don't need to see all these tears like every conversation, you know? Like sometimes these moments just don't feel earned to me. Like the moment that we talked about last time when, you know, Tilly and Michael had the moment and Tilly was like, oh, I feel like you let us go. That was earned because there is a strong relationship between Michael and Tilly that we've seen. You know, we've seen that develop, evolve, whatever. So it made a lot of sense. And you can really feel the impact of the moment where they knew they were coming from different places and they know that there is this chasm between them now because Michael has been, you know, gone for a year, basically, quote unquote, gone for a year. But here I'm like, oh my goodness, I barely know Commander Nhan. I don't know anything about her. And she doesn't have a relationship with Michael. Like, who cares? Bye, bitch, you know? So anyway, so the first half of the episode worked. It was cool, interesting. The second half did not work as well for me. Anyway, that's my spiel. What about you? What did you think?
Well, I'm going to do them in reverse order since I've got something that kind of ties into what you're talking about. I had the same feeling for Nhan that I kind of had for Ariam's departure, right? It's kind of like a one episode spotlight on the character when when she's been around this whole time. And this is one of the things that I think I've said in the past that Discovery is doing really well is that they're building out the people in the universe to make it feel more real, I think. So I've said, just like Deep Space Nine did, you know, 200 characters over the course of 7 seasons with DS9. You know, I think that really brought to life that piece of Star Trek universe. Here, I think they made the same mistake with Nhan that they did with Ariam, in that, you know, you see her for an episode and then you say goodbye to her, right? Ariam obviously died. Again, that was sort of tied into the whole control issue. This was it almost felt like we have too many people kind of hanging on to the ship and we can't develop all these characters. And so we need to say goodbye to some of them. And Nhan was one of them, having come from the Enterprise to Discovery. And I mean, there is a scene where Georgiou and her are talking and asking why she's still here, and not from this episode, from a previous episode. And Nhan is like, I'm here to kind of honor Ariam,
right,
and the sacrifice that she made. So yeah, I think I agree with you that this farewell to Nhan is falls flat. I agree that it falls flat, but I do want to say, you know, even though that we don't perceive a relationship with them, you know, in their farewell, and I'm not talking about the crying, but just the words that are said to one another.
Continue.
I know you can't stand the crying, but
I hate
for
crying.
for me, the words are the killer here. And actually, what Nhan said so poignantly and so accurately was she defined Burnham in this one sentence, and I'm going to say it in a second, that really resonated with me. You know, Burnham has been the central character all through the episode, all through the series. She's been the kind of the definitive. She's number one on the call sheet. But we've seen her do all these actions, and I think this also explains her past actions, and I think it also explains her future actions, specifically in what happens in the next episode, Scavengers, and even in Unification 3. But Nhan says to her, I've never seen anyone reach for the best in others quite like you. Don't ever stop. And those words really resonated with me for a lot of different reasons, partly in my past where I've, you know, as a manager, as a leader of people, that's something that I've always strived for inherently, and never had it put so finely a point on it as Nhan did. But I think that really defines Burnham. She is someone who she does reach for the best, but she also expects the best from people. And expectations are, you know, the thing about expectations is people can live up to your expectations or not, but it's it's on you for having those expectations and not on them for not living up to them. So I really felt like that really signified what Burnham's all about, is that she has a moral and a moral compass that she follows that is always true north, and she doesn't take into account a lot of the effects of her actions because of this sort of North Pole leaning way about her. And so I thought that was really powerful. And I also thought that, what Burnham says to her, and I think this is, pretty obvious. I think, I really hope our paths cross again. Obviously, I think that we're likely to see Nhan again at some point in the future. Rachel Ancherel is a great actress, and she did a great job with Nhan, even though we don't really know her too well.
Right.
So, and again, the same thing with Ariam, we kind of learned a lot about her in the beginning of the episode. As in this case, it was the middle of the episode where Nhan was like, oh, this air, you're coming with us because this is a Barzon ship, or the Barzon crew is manning it. So, again, and then she kind of says, oh, I wish I'd gone home before we came to the future. All these things that came out because of the moment, not because it was intentionally built out before it came to this point. So I felt like it was kind of empty in a lot of ways, but I did like Nhan. I did like her. I'm never gonna fault having a powerful woman as a security officer. I think that's awesome, and really she did kind of fulfill the role of chief security officer on the ship. So we, one of the things about this, and we find out next week, chief science officer, like they're using all these titles all of a sudden. So like, where's our chief medical officer? Don't know. All of these things that kind of have popped up. But I thought that, Nhan did a great job as far as from a security aspect of running things. But I think she was underutilized, underdeveloped. But I think Discovery right now has a problem with, there are too many characters, and we have a whole bridge crew of characters that have been with us since episode 3. And we need to go back and start focusing more on them and building them out, because all of these ancillary characters coming in and out are really kind of taking away from time where we could focus more on them. And thankfully, we're seeing a lot about Detmer. Even in this episode, we saw a little bit about how she's struggling to get the ship into the right place in the ion storm, so she can get so that they can get a tractor beam on the what is it, the Zikov?
The Tikov.
So I think they need to go back and kind of, if I were leading this show, I would say, we kind of need to clear out the extra characters and really focus on our core bridge crew here a little bit more. But so that's my feeling on Nhan. But going back to the beginning, seeing the Federation, that was wicked cool.
Yeah, it was very cool.
Breaking through the distortion field, and you're like, the frustration I have, I loved that, is that I want to see these ships up close. We're seeing them through a viewport or through a view screen, and they're they're not super clear. And so, of course, we rely on the internet to tell us that the USS Nog was right next to the Discovery as she pulled in.
But did you see that illustrated poster that the Star Trek?
I did, yeah.
The Star Trek Instagram page posted? It was like much clearer than what we are able to see in the show in terms of the Voyager J and the Nog. I think the show has really great special effects, but I don't know what it is. Sometimes the way that the way that they filter the effects sometimes is really hard to tell the details. So I was like, because I'm like, I want to be able to see the details. I want to, what is Eagle Moss going to do? Eagle Moss needs these details to make their whatever. They're like miniatures.
Right.
I don't know how they're going to handle the detachment cells. That's interesting.
Sure.
But
Yeah. That's
know,
a big debate.
Yeah, but it's cool. No, I mean, I liked that you could tell, like the Voyager especially, you can tell that it's different, but still it has a very like angular primary hull shape that is so recognizable. You know, I really love that. But yeah, I totally wish that we could see more details. I'm ready for a Voyager J technical manual, you know.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I think we're both people who love looking at ships, and you know, it's not only the exterior. I want to see the bridges on these ships, but that also brings up one thing that I'm critical of. And although the special effects are great, I think they're almost too much at times. And we'll see that more in future weeks with the new communicators and things like that. It was almost overwhelming to see the whole vastness of Federation headquarters and all the ships that you could barely make out. But also, I think even when you get to Federation headquarters or Starfleet headquarters, you know, the programmable matter is kind of coming into effect in a lot of ways.
Right.
I get frustrated because I'm thinking like these actors are working in a big green box.
I know. Yeah.
You know, and you don't really get to see any of this stuff in it. And I'm like, yeah, that I guess that saves money, does it? I don't know. You know,
yeah,
you built a whole Enterprise bridge, but you can't build a Starfleet headquarters. Like, I don't know. You know, it's just that's one of the things that I kind of get frustrated with is that it's almost too much.
Right. And you know, I'm in the same mind where I'm definitely less is more. And I think a really great example, this is a Star Trek podcast, not a Star Wars podcast. But if we had to compare the prequels, you know, the George Lucas prequels to The Mandalorian, which, you know, there are definitely a lot of special effects of Mandalorian, but they look super realistic, you know, like they seem very natural. Like they're supposed to give you a sense that this is an environment that can exist. And it's there to support the narrative in a secondary way, right? Versus the prequels, which, you know, sure, the special effects support the narrative, but they're so overwhelming that they potentially can overtake the actors are on the screen, you know. I don't think Star Trek is there yet, but I do think that it is like on the verge of becoming too over-reliant on the, you know, how far they can take the special effects right now, where, you know, like you can do great storytelling without all the bells and whistles. You don't need all these, you know, I think the most beloved episodes of Star Trek are probably the ones that, you know, probably don't have like a lot of special effects, you know? So I totally hear what you're saying. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are cool moments. Like, you know, when we saw the Voyager J, I was like, oh my God. In Scavengers, like there were some moments that it looked just really epic. Like, you know, some of the set pieces, you know, like when, this is not to talk about Scavengers, but even when books ship, like it's like modular and it's like a transformer. I was like, okay, I did not see that coming, and that's really awesome.
Well, it transforms to fit into Discovery's shuttle bay, so it, you know, it transforms even in that way.
I don't recall that, but then like when it was like, you know, when it was like firing on the facility in Scavengers, and then it went through this narrow corridor, and then it just, you know, remodulated into a different shape. I was like, oh, that's really cool. They're all moments like that. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm like, all right, that was pretty awesome. But I think it's just like sometimes it's like too prevalent. It's like just all around that it can become a bit extra.
Yeah. And then for me, that sort of takes me out of the story when it's too much. Like, you know, I'd rather them be in a physical set and have a green screen that they're looking out over the space outside of this space station in the middle of it all, and have them do the special effects out there rather than the special effects in the room where you're kind of, it's just distracting. Also, you know, can we have a different color other than white? And, you know, like they're all in gray uniforms, like very gray uniforms, everything. I mean, it's very clean. I get it. It's the future. I understand, and I do think, it would, things like that would be kept up to a very high standard, but it just felt very sterile almost,
Right.
almost too sterile. So yeah, it's a bit of, the seeing all those ships was great. Seeing the Federation headquarters, that's actually really awesome too. I mean, Eagle Moss is going to have a great time building that.
I know. It's so interesting, though. It's a completely different design than what we're used to seeing.
Yeah. So, a few other, the other story besides Nhan, and obviously the first part of the episode is focused on getting to the Federation, them not being trusted, which I agree with you. Vance's motives are pretty clear. I can't help but side on the side of Barnum on this one and feel like, I'm almost being put upon, or, why don't you trust me? Like, I get there, but I fall on this. I'm glad that they gave that reasoning, but I still fall on the side of the Discovery, feeling like we just traveled 1,000 years in the future to cover all this stuff, and you're treating us like spies.
Right.
So, but I do like Vance a lot. I think he's a no nonsense but very fair commander-in-chief. He doesn't micromanage, which I think is really, really important, because he didn't tell Saru what to do in the next episode. He kind of he
was just like, figure it out, which that's why I kind of like, a good boss for me is like, here's like kind of what I want you to do, you figure it out, I'm not going to tell you how to do it. No nonsense.
And the only other so there's a non-story in the second half. We've got the Federation in the first half, and kind of bridging the two is what's going on with Giorgio, right? And obviously there's a lot of talk about this on the internet. I have, thinking that, what does this mean? Are we going to go back to the mirror universe? Is she going to go back to the 22nd century? Is she, what does that all mean? But and this time on this rewatch, I kind of caught it, and I wanted to go back, and I didn't have time to go back and get the exact diagnosis, but they did tell her that there is something wrong with stem cells, something about stem cells in Terrans that degrade over time.
Like, basically, something about their genetic makeup makes them naturally aggressive and different from humans in the Prime universe.
Yeah, but also that there is a fault in that, and that it is causing the downfall or the deaths of Terrans. Or
really?
That's the way I took it. I'll have to And this was a hologram. This wasn't the strange guy with the glasses talking. This is when the
David Cronenberg. I didn't even. I was like, why does it look so familiar? I was like,
creepy as hell. Creepy as hell. He was so creepy.
But I thought that he did a good job being a foil, though, because he we don't know him, but he definitely had an air of gravitas where he could stand on the same level as Giorgio, and challenge her. Like, I thought that he did a good job, even though it was like a 2-minute scene. He did a great job.
He really did. Yeah, he's definitely. I mean, obviously, there's this thought in some people's heads: did he do something to her? Possibly. We don't know yet what his motives are. He is a Terran expert, been studying it since he's a boy. He's obviously a much older man now, so he's been studying it for a while. There hasn't been a crossing over in 500 years. So that's interesting. So maybe she has to go back 500 years and maybe that's where, I think there's a lot of questions about where this Section 31 show is going to be set, what time frame. 500 years earlier than this would be kind of interesting. That would be after Picard's time. So that would be kind of an interesting place for her to land, but we'll see. Going back and watching this episode again, actually, and I said it earlier, really helped me identify more and more with Burnham and who she is and what she's about. But it was great to see her on the bridge in the gold uniform, saying Black Alert and taking the crew on this mission to get those seeds. So that was really cool to see her in command of the ship. So kudos to that. I know things change over the next couple of episodes, which is totally understandable given the circumstances, but it was great to see her in command, however briefly. But that was the other scene that really stood out. Oh, there was one other scene as well. The Jet, Tilly, Stamets scene back and forth between the three of them was just great.
Yeah, when they're trying to solve the mystery of that scientist.
Yes. So
Dr.
that was a lot
Addis,
of
I
fun.
think.
Yeah, they were a lot. It was a lot of fun to see the back and forth, and Lieutenant Willa, the security chief for Starfleet, was there and saying, "You guys are dysfunctional," and they're all, they were like, "That's how we work."
Yeah. I like that too.
So that was a great scene with the three of them. So anytime you get Jet and Stamets in a room, you gotta stand back and just watch the fireworks.
Yeah.
It's always a show. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Die Trying. Watching it again, I think I enjoyed it even more. I was paying more attention to some of the details, trying to pick out the ships, trying to see the nuances and see the things that I hadn't picked up on other viewings.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall I thought it was a good episode. Yeah, I'm not, the second half of that episode, not as excited about, but yeah, obviously they proved their worth, and also great to see Hugh Culber on the away team.
Oh yeah, he had something to do.
Yeah, so
yeah.
I mean, he's had something to do. He's sort of becoming the de facto counselor.
Right. They never like goes off the ship that often.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
That's rare. That's very rare.
Yeah. So it was great to see him.
One thing we didn't touch on is this little mystery box that they dropped with this lullaby. Remember?
Oh yeah, I did. That's right. Yeah.
But we haven't touched on that since this episode. That hasn't been brought up again. And I'm like, is that coming back? I mean, I would think so. And it may have something to do with the burn. I have no idea. But it was just like, yeah, like the episode before we saw how Adira knows the song, and now it was Commander Nhan? It was the
Barzan family that was singing it, and Michael recognized it. Yeah, and she did ask Lieutenant Willa about it, and Lieutenant Willa knew a little bit about it as well. So it's definitely speckled around the Federation somehow. We just don't know how or why yet. I'm wondering if it's something, some sort of mind control or programming that all of these people went through at some point, or something that might be part of might be part of the overall plan of what happened with the burn. But and we did get in this episode, it was 120 years ago that the burn happened. So that puts it at like 3069.
Is that correct? Where are we at? 3188?
We're at 3189 now.
3189. Oh yes. 160 years ago, is that?
120 years ago.
120 years, yeah. Okay.
So 3069.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah. So we sort of.
So hopefully that's something they go back to.
Yeah, hopefully. Again, the burn is sort of the overarching theme of this season, and at this point, up to Unification 3, we're over halfway through this season. So
I was just about to say that, but I didn't want to get ahead of myself because we're not talking about Unification 3.
No, we're not. But we're in the timeline. We only have 6 episodes left of Discovery, which is frightening to think of all that needs to be happen. But yeah, the song is definitely something interesting. And one final thing, I did write down the song and I forgot about that. But the other thing I think was really poignant was at the end about when Saru talked about the Renaissance and Giotto and helping people look up. And that he's hoping that the discovery will help people look up.
Yeah.
So I thought that was, there's been a lot of speculation and comments about this is not the universe of hope anymore. And I thought that Saru bringing that up and almost saying that we're the ones that are bringing the hope.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was really poignant and really nice to see. In fact, I would have actually, rather than said "Die Trying," called this episode "Died Trying." I would have rather it been called "Looking Up." I think that would have been a better tie-in, because I think the "Die Trying" is the father saying he's going to die trying to save them or find a cure for them.
I didn't make a connection, but sure, I believe you. Yeah, I feel Saru ever since he lost his fear ganglia, he's become just so much more confident and wiser, and I think he's making a great captain so far. So
yeah, I think and we'll talk about this later on. I think he's how do I want to put this? He's almost a little bit too by the book.
He is very by the book.
And that's what I'm struggling with. And
he's no James T. Kirk.
He is not, no.
But Picard was also pretty by the book sometimes. He was very, very respectful of the book. Like he didn't.
Yeah, I guess I feel like this is a little bit harsher. I feel like this is a little bit stricter, like a little bit.
But it makes
tighter.
sense because, like, particularly in the next episode where he demotes Michael, they're in a new situation and they needed something to prove, right? So it makes sense where he's like, no, we can't just disobey orders. We just got here and we just earned your trust, you know. There are instances where you don't request permission and ask for forgiveness later, but I think that those are instances where you can actually ask for forgiveness. You know, in this case, it's too early to kind of do something that may put your relationship with Starfleet in jeopardy, right?
Yeah, no, so. I understand.
And even Michael said that it was the right call through teary eyes. I'm like, okay, great. Again, next episode. But
next episode, right? Yeah, exactly. Well, I think that wraps up our talking about Die Trying.
Yeah. I think
Shall we?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Shall we spend a few minutes talking with Counselor Troy?
Yeah, sounds good. Let's go.
All right, let's go dish with DEANNA.
Come in. Hi.
You got a minute?
Sure.
So Johnson, what's been going on with you? I know we alluded to a lot going on in our lives at the top of the show, but do you want to share a little bit more about what's been going on in your neck of the woods?
So there's been a good amount going on. I think the most that's been going on has probably been with my family. So about 2 weeks ago, my dad had to go to the hospital because he was having some issues breathing due to some swelling that was around his abdomen. And I actually didn't even know that he actually has some heart issues. I didn't even know that, but the heart issues are what's causing the swelling. I was like, oh, interesting. Because whenever doctors have asked me about my family history, I'm like, oh yeah, they're fine. They have no issues. And then I was like, wait, what? Like my dad has heart issues. But he's also like 90-ish, like over 90. So it's like, who doesn't have issues, when they're like, whatever. So yeah, he went to the hospital at this point, it's been about 2 weeks. He went there, he got better, but then some other issues popped up, that got better, and then he got COVID from the hospital. So it's like suboptimal. So now he had to get transferred to the COVID wing, and now he's there, and it's really suboptimal because,
thankfully he's asymptomatic.
Right. I think that's a good thing. But that being said, he can't leave yet. He can't leave the hospital yet because he can't quarantine. He's so old that he needs help at home. So even though he's asymptomatic, if you're usually asymptomatic, you can go home, you can quarantine yourself, watch out for like any emerging symptoms, but otherwise you just need to quarantine. After 14 days, you emerge, right? But he can't quarantine because he needs to be taken care of. So like logistically it's not possible. So that means that he needs to stay in a facility, like at the hospital, where someone can take care of him. Because my mom can't do it because A, she's old, but B, she's also, I've said this before, no spring chicken. So she can't expose herself. So yeah, so now he's stuck in the hospital. I'm actually more concerned about his like mental state than because physically he's actually doing all right. He was actually doing better today than yesterday. He's been incrementally improving every day, getting stronger in that sense. But he, I do not think he's having a fun time in the hospital, and it's like really bad for him mentally, emotionally. That being said, I did go see, I did go home this past week for Thanksgiving, and I introduced my mom to the internet, and it was crazy. So I got her an iPhone. I actually got her an old iPhone, but she started to use it more. So actually just bought her like an iPhone 11 today. Like I was like, okay, you're starting to use this more. It's good. You should get a better phone, bigger screen, whatever. But introduced her to the internet. It's like taking someone that's living in 1990 and then transplanting them to 2020. And it's like, what is all of this? Like, how do I navigate this interface? What? I touch the screen and I do this to scroll up? What is scrolling up? What is this additional content I'm seeing that is below the fold after I take my finger and move it up? I'm like, oh my God. Like, it's just like, if you think about it, it's just like, this is, we've been exposed to this for so long. So we've been like learning it incrementally. And, the whole point about user design and interfacing is that you're learning, you can, it's natural, but it also presumes that you kind of know some fundamentals, right? You kind of understand that you tap on a button to click on it, like things like that, which you take for granted. But she's never used a computer before. She's never tapped on any interactive buttons before. So it's like, and she's like hitting it really hard. I'm like, no, just tap it, because she's hitting it so hard that like it's bringing up a different menu. And she's like, what is this menu? I'm like, no, you don't want to delete the app. You just want to tap the app. And she's like, what's an app? I'm like, okay, it's a tool. It's basically like just it's a utility. I'm trying to explain this in Chinese. So it's like, so I was doing all this. The reason why I bring this up is because other than introducing her to technology that's 2020, she's also now we're able to FaceTime with my dad. So like we're able to see him and he sees us, and I think that's helpful. At least, so I'm gonna try to do that once a day at least, just kind of like, so he can have someone to talk to, or at least hear someone's voice. So yeah, so that's what I'm dealing with right now, for the most part. The other thing, and I can actually say this because by the time that this is published, it'll be known. I got a new job. So that's the other thing. So yay, I got a new job. So I've been interviewing for this position at a different ad agency, and I'm starting actually in January. So I'll get like a little bit of a break. So I'm excited for that. It's been so long since I had like a break where I haven't had to think about work. Even earlier this year, I went to Australia for 2 weeks, but work was on my mind because we had some deadlines, and I was like, all right, I gotta like review stuff when I get back to the hotel. So I've been at my current agency for 7 years, so over 7 years. So it's been a while since I've had the chance to even have any sort of break. So I'm looking forward to that. And then this agency, it's just going to be a new environment, new clients. I'm going to be doing B2B. So that's completely different than what I'm doing now. And I'm excited to learn new things. But in any case, yeah, so that's the other big piece of news. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, so yes, I'm very excited. Thank you. I've been, so with all the things that was going on with my parents, concurrently, I was also like interviewing, putting together like a mock presentation. It was just like a lot. So at least one thing has been settled. And now I just need to figure out like, my parents' situation. But that's mostly it, I would say, in terms of what's going on with me. But it's a lot. Anyways.
Yeah.
But what about you? Yeah, what about you, Mike? What's going on?
Well, I mean, the big thing right now in our lives is Dennis's mom is in hospice care at home. So that's been a big change, I guess. So for those of you who don't know, hospice care is kind of end of life care. There's no, you make the patient comfortable and hopefully not in any pain, but there are no, no medical interventions or anything like that. So it's just kind of to help them ease their passing into the next life. And so he's been going out there every day to be there. His brothers are there, and so that's been a lot. And so yeah, so we're just kind of going through that process. And then on the work front, it was just super busy. I mean, obviously,
So busy.
So busy. Two major events were completed as of a week ago. So, this past week has been much lighter, and obviously I've had from Thursday through today off for the most part. So that's been really nice to have that downtime. But I'm actually experiencing that feeling when your weekend ends and you have to go back and it all begins again on Monday. So yeah, that's and it's a race from here until middle of December, and then with the Christmas break in there. So yeah, so it's a lot going on. A lot going on personally, a lot going on professionally. And so yeah, it's been a lot and taken up a lot of our time and energy, which is why I haven't been able to find time to meet up and podcast.
Yeah.
But we still chat when an episode comes out. We usually chat a little bit about stuff, but we chatted some, except for that one episode where I was doing a play-by-play as I was watching it with you. But yeah, we really haven't had a lot of time to talk Star Trek.
Yeah.
So
aging
but
parents.
I did go out. I did aging parents, but I've had some time to some downtime to watch some TV and do some other things, which I'll talk about in another episode. But tomorrow is Monday, and it's back to the grind and back to work. But yeah, it's been a lot personally to kind of balance between having a parent who's dying is certainly challenging. So
and then it's also in the midst of a pandemic still, so that just compounds everything, because for you, Thanksgiving was just you and Dennis, and for me it was just me and my mom because we couldn't be with my dad. So it's just there's that's on top of everything else.
Yeah, it's we still are in a pandemic, and it's definitely it's a time where and I mean, fortunately I had Dennis did come home, so he did have Thanksgiving. He was out at his mother's for Thanksgiving Day. I actually went for my now second annual 5K Turkey Day run, so I did that. So yeah, and then I came back and I did some cooking for Dennis and I, and Dennis came home and we ate dinner together. So so it wasn't it was definitely a different holiday. Definitely it's been just a different time in general.
Right.
But I feel for those people who live alone, who are apart from their family. Obviously, some people didn't take the advice and did travel to see people. Numbers that I'm seeing are still climbing for COVID.
Yeah.
Even in New York, we're approaching like 3.5% statewide. So, that's a little concerning.
It's suboptimal.
Yeah. So, so I feel for all the people who didn't have someone to kind of spend the holiday with, or chose wisely not to,
Right.
not to travel. So, but we are still in the midst of all of that. Although I think it was this week we had a third vaccine from the UK come out. So more choices is always good, and this one has some different benefits than the other two do. So we'll kind of see what happens. But
yeah.
Not that I think that, a vaccine getting approved is going to suddenly make everything go right, because it's not.
It's going to take a while.
So I think we're going to be in this situation for a while longer. But
I think definitely through the winter. Hopefully by springtime there'll be distribution of some sort. But I mean, the essential workers are going to get it first. I mean, we're not.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And the elderly, I think, are people who are most prone to, like, your dad would be a good candidate for.
But now he has it, so too bad.
Right. Yeah. So that's a little bit about what's going on with me. Obviously, we both had a lot going on, but we are going to try to record these. I don't know how micro these podcasts are. I felt like we
this is over an hour.
Has it been over an hour? Oh gosh.
I think so.
So
close to an
we're
hour.
catching up, but we'll have some. Maybe we'll try to trim down the other ones a little bit. We'll see. Obviously, we love talking about Trek.
Yeah.
And next episode has some great LGBTQ moments, so we want to. We'll talk a little bit about that. So So I guess that's it for now. Thanks for joining us. Do you want to tell people how to get in touch with us if they have some thoughts on Die Trying or anything else we might have covered in this episode?
Yeah, so everyone, you can reach us through emailing us at dspacepride@gmail.com, or you can reach us through Twitter and Instagram. Our handles there are just @DeepSpacePride. But yeah, hopefully we'll hear from you guys, and if we do, we'll do our best to get back to you. Not that we have anything else. Not because we have nothing else going on.
We have nothing else going on. Exactly. Yeah. Nothing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll see you again next time.
Bye.
Deep Space Pride is a production of Coconut Media Works. Executive producers Bill Smith and Dan Davidson. For more great Star Trek discussion, discover the other shows of the Trek Geeks podcast network at trekgeeks.com, or find us in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app.